2 in the morning. Picture a story analyst on the floor of an emptied apartment, arranging his life into a circle of index cards. One reads, "Divorce, crossing the threshold." Another, "The year he couldn't write, belly of the whale." One waits blank, "Return with the elixir." By sunrise, every failure will have a function. The map he's using is called the oldest pattern in human storytelling. Its modern diagram was published in 1949. How did a map for reading myths become a test for writing movies and for deciding which parts of a life count? Give him 20 years as a story analyst, the person studios pay to say what a script is missing. 4,000 screenplays, diagnosed in 10 pages each. Tonight, the deadline is his own. By 9 a.m., he owes a producer a treatment based on his life, the divorce, the stalled career, told, the note says, as a journey. For 20 years, he has known exactly when someone else's hero must leave home. Tonight, he is looking for the stage that explains him. The circle on his floor began in a cabin, 1929. A young scholar named Joseph Campbell comes home to a collapsed economy and begins years of independent study, much of it near Woodstock. He later said he often read 9 hours a day, myth, epic, scripture, romance, and slowly became convinced the stories were repeating themselves. Picture the method as tracing paper. Lay story over story against the light, and one outline shows through. Separation, initiation, return. In 1949, he publishes the outline as "The Hero with 1,000 Faces" and names it with a word borrowed from James Joyce, the Monomyth. One journey, he argues, under 1,000 disguises. Be fair to him. Campbell never said every story must pass through every stage in order. His circle was a lens for looking, not a law. But even a lens selects. Some sheets never join the overlap. On his floor, the man checks his divorce against the diagram. He knows the map by heart. The myths far less well. For a quarter century, the book was influential without being an instruction manual, read by artists, scholars, seekers. Then, a young filmmaker drowning in his own drafts picks it up. George Lucas said later that Campbell's work helped him focus a story that had gotten away from him. The story became Star Wars. The map had its proof of concept. In Campbell's last years, the journalist Bill Moyers sat with him for hours of filmed conversation, much of it, fittingly, at Lucas's Skywalker Ranch. PBS aired it in 1988, and a 40-year-old book of comparative mythology walked onto the bestseller lists. In the mid-'80s, a studio story analyst, the same job our man does, had condensed the 400-page book into 7 typed pages. A practical guide. Which heroes do what and when? Christopher Vogler's Memo photocopied its way through studios and agencies. Readers, writers, executives passed it around like a cheat sheet, which, to be fair, is what it was. The Memo didn't do this alone. 3-act structure, genre, the economics of a $100 million bet were all pulling the same direction. The Memo gave the pull a diagram. And a map like this escalates. First, it describes. Then, it advises. Then, it approves. By the 90s, in the rooms where scripts live or die, the map was no longer describing stories, it was approving them. Watch the diagram travel. 17 stages in a scholar's engraving. a pencil sketch, 7 pages, a checklist, a wellness wheel that says you are here. Each copy simpler, each copy more certain. He still has his copy. It came in his training binder 20 years ago. He was handed the map before he ever read the myths. So he does something he hasn't done since graduate school. He opens one of the myths itself, one of the oldest descent stories that survives, Inanna. Inanna, Queen of Heaven, goes down to the land of the dead, her sister Ereshkigal's kingdom. She says she has come for a funeral. The poem lets her real motives stay dark. At each of 7 gates, something is stripped from her, until she stands powerless before the throne. The judges of the underworld fix the eyes of death upon her. Her corpse is hung on a hook. She does not rise by her own strength. Her rescue begins with instructions she left behind. Her minister begs the gods to refuse. Enki, god of wisdom, scrapes the dirt from under his fingernails and shapes 2 small creatures who slip through the doors like flies. They find Ereshkigal writhing, crying out in anguish, and each time she cries, they cry her cry back to her, in exchange often read as the poem's strangest mercy. Grief answered with grief. She offers them a reward. They ask for the corpse. The plant of life and the water of life restore her. But no one leaves the underworld free. Demons climb with her to collect a substitute, and she finds her husband, Dumuzi, on his throne, dressed magnificently, while everyone else she loves is in mourning. She fixes the eyes of death on him. The tablet ends broken. In what survives, his sister shares the sentence, half the year below each. Dumuzi and Inanna stood at the center of Mesopotamian lament traditions, a story that could hold seasons, grief, and the question of who mourns whom. Now force the poem through the simplified map, not Campbell's chapter, the version that circulates today. A heroine crosses a threshold, descends, dies, is reborn, returns transformed. 5 labels survive, gone. The cry answered with a cry that raised the dead. Gone. The sister on the underworld throne, and the sister who split the year. Gone. The husband who paid for the return. The rescue was not hers, and the return was not free. The summary is not false. That is what makes it powerful. It keeps the movement, and it loses the meaning. Folklorists later argued that a universal myth could be produced by selection, emphasize the passages that fit, translate local gods into universal archetypes, and file the remainder under variation. Campbell's defenders answered that his circle was never meant as a checklist. Both can be right. The problem is not that the circle is false. It is true often enough to make its exclusions invisible. On his floor, the circle waits. Somewhere in it, there is a card that says, "Ordeal," in his handwriting, where a marriage used to be. Because the map's last migration was into memory. Psychologists who study life stories find that people carry an internal narrative of who they are, and that its shape matters. People whose life stories contain redemptive turns, the layoff that led somewhere, the illness that taught something, often report greater well-being. But that's a correlation, and it leaves the question open. Do redemptive stories help people recover, or are people who recover simply better able to tell redemptive stories? The research says redemption and well-being often travel together. It does not say every wound must become wisdom. That demand comes from culture. And this is where a map becomes a tribunal. The year that taught you nothing starts to feel like your failure. Not because it hurt, because it won't convert. He has cards like that. They sit outside the circle where he pushed them an hour ago. The year nothing changed. The apology that never came. Saturday afternoons with his daughter that led to no revelation at all. Listen to enough founder origin stories and you start to hear the shape. Random timing becomes vision, privilege becomes courage, and the garage is always, somehow, the cave. Watch a feed after a layoff. The announcement arrives pre-shaped. Ordeal, lesson, stronger person on the far side. Unresolved pain is hard to package. The lesson travels more easily than the confusion. And now the stories teach the machines. There's no reason to think every model secretly contains Campbell's diagram, but a system trained on a culture saturated with one story shape may reproduce and amplify its regularities at scale. A popular map becomes part of the terrain the next map is trained on. Behind his window, the sky is going gray. The page is still empty. 3 hours left. Even this argument arrived by the road it questions. A strange image, a mystery, a turn, a meaning. That is how deeply the map has entered us. What's left then is not to burn the map. He doesn't sweep the cards away. He looks at the circle a long time. Then he opens it. He picks up the cards from outside the circle and sets them in between the stages. He does not rename them. The year nothing changed goes in as the year nothing changed. The circle comes apart into a line, irregular, unfinished, longer than the diagram allowed. The last card he touches is the blank one. He doesn't write on it. He sets it at the open end. He did not discover a road hidden inside his life. The road taught him how to remember where he had been.